And I am going to introduce our woman of the hour. We have Dr. Nichole Thompson, a dynamic leader with over 20 years of experience in diverse roles. With a doctorate in educational leadership, Dr. Thompson has excelled as a chief diversity officer, serial entrepreneur, and global thought leader. I present to you our speaker for the hour, Dr. Nichole Thompson.
Well, thank
Yay.
you all so much, and thank you all for the invite. I feel like I've been on somewhat of a speaking road show during Women's History Month, but it has been phenomenal. I never try to shy away from an opportunity to talk to women and to tell my story because in hopes that it will encourage someone, it will help someone to understand that you can do it differently, and that's the precedent, or that's the theme of my journey. It's a very different journey. It is not traditional in any respect. So again, I'm Nichole Thompson. I am from Birmingham, Alabama. Originally, kind of got to this area um, by way of Tuskegee University and stayed in the area. And so I started my journey of professional education in banking, and I literally hated it. I hated everything about banking and really kind of stumbled for a while around trying to figure out, like, well, what is that thing that really speaks to my soul? And ended up launching a fashion type of business. Did a lot of research. I had a fashion eye and thought I would want to go into fashion, meaning a boutique, owning a clothing store. And that was my introduction to entrepreneurship. After a lot of research and investments, I opened a boutique, and this was the early 2000s, and opened that store. It had a very good run. Ended up selling it to a local entrepreneur, but that journey taught me so much. That journey taught me that I'm an entrepreneur at heart, starting things and seeing them being birthed. That was the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey. And I think my bio says that I'm a serial entrepreneur. Well, I'll tell you why. I am very much a serial entrepreneur, but I realized during that journey that I am a founder, and meaning that I start companies and I like to hand them off at some point. And that's what I've done for the past, it feels like almost 20 years now. So we had that clothing store here out of a need. It wasn't just, oh, I want to open this business. It was out of a need to see certain things in the city that I was not seeing. And I felt like women shouldn't have to go to Birmingham or Atlanta to get certain fashions. And so we built an extremely big clientele, a very sturdy business. And some of those people I'm still good friends with that shop with me during that time. Well, I did an exit out of the business, and it was right before we had that '08, that big '08 kind of fallout for the economy. And when I did, I went back and got my master's in higher education counseling for college environments because I always had an interest in the collegiate environment, and met a woman who became a mentor. And her name was Dr. Leela Vaughn, and she was at Troy main campus. And she introduced me to this concept or thought of, have you ever thought about getting your doctorate degree because you have a gift for college students and for counseling? And I toyed with it, and she sparked something in me. I felt like she lit the fire. And she was a woman who, at the time, was a mother, and I was a mother that had three relatively young children. And my philosophy has always been, if I could just see it, I could see somebody doing it, I know I can. And the introduction of a woman with this a terminal degree was very new to me. There was not anyone in my immediate family that had a doctorate degree, and she began to coach me, began to mentor me, and talked me into it. And I remember saying, well, how hard is it? And she's like, oh, it's very hard. It's really bad. And I'm like, but has anybody died from getting a doctorate? It was like, no, nobody's died. I said, okay. After much prayer and consulting with my family, because remember, I have three children at the time, but I did it in 3 years. And that was the beginning. That was a long time ago. That would have been still early 2000s. Well, came out, started my career in higher education counseling, working with college students, and it was the best ride of my life. I love students. I love working with them. I had an opportunity to create programs, to create curriculum. I taught, I was the vice president. I did so much in the time that I was in the system that I really flatlined at a certain point. And then I felt this nudge again. That's why I said my journey is different. Like the way that God has kind of set me up, and that's God for me. And for others, it may be something else. But the way that it works for me is I complete the assignment, then I'm on to the next assignment. And I felt the assignment was coming to an end. And most people were saying to me, like, no, people retire from jobs. Like, what do you mean it's coming to an end? And I said, I feel like I thought I would be a college president, but I feel like I've done everything that I'm supposed to do in this space right now. And I began to probe what would the next thing look like for me, knowing that if there was not a next, I could always come back to education. But I did feel there were some other things that were out there for me, and consulting was one of them. I would get calls from people, area stakeholders that would say, hey, I saw you at a training. I saw you present. I saw your article that was in this journal. Can you come help us? And it was so much externally that I began to become wild enough in my thinking that I could make a career out of consulting. And I needed to leave the post of the position because there were some other things still pulling on me in fashion. And little did I know that the setup would be that I would take this trip to Africa that would become so pivotal in my journey. So, between trying to leave the university, I took my daughter on a trip to Africa. And on that trip, I wasn't expecting anything other than it was her senior year. And that was the gift that she asked from us. And we went to Ghana, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to take her to Ghana, learn more about my ancestry and that sort of thing. But little did I know that that trip would set me up to circle back to fashion again. So that's why I was getting the antsies, getting uncomfortable in education because a new door was opening for me. And the very short version of that story is I ended up, of course, because of my desire and love for fashion, meeting with designers there, understanding the culture and understanding how they view fashion and what inspires African fashion. I got wild enough and crazy enough in my thinking to say, I should launch a brand from here. I should launch something that united African fashion with European fashion and American fashion and bring the three worlds together. And that was a very, very wild journey. Long story short, I ended up working with a local designer out of Nigeria, and this would have been in December of 2016. Well, in 2017 of May, I launched a handbag collection with this designer, and we are in our seventh year of manufacturing from Africa. And of course, I'm giving you the high level view because there are a lot of things that come into play when you are working with a designer in another country, a lot to do with customs, understanding business principles from a global perspective. But just know that from December of 16 to May of 17, when we launched our first collection, it was a lot of work. And at that time, I was still on my university post. And then that was what pushed me out the door. I knew that I needed to leave so that I could grow that brand. Because remember, I said I'm a founder and I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So ended up leaving my university post after a year or so. I think I left in 2018 and launched the consulting firm, which would give me the flexibility to run this brand. And from there, the rest is history. Ada Chic is the name of our leather handbag company. We moved from Nigeria to East Africa, where we are able to trace our leather. We're able to work with the designers on the ground. We're able to work closely with customs so that all of our products come in at the United States grade. We have been in that company again. This is our seventh year. We just got back from Ethiopia a couple weeks ago. And to see where we have grown has been just such a, it's almost like seeing your baby start in its infancy, and now she is 7 years old. And so, on the flip side, we have Gateway Solutions, which is my consulting firm. We work with small businesses, we work with the Montgomery Chamber, we work with area stakeholders where we provide solutions, training, education. We work with entrepreneurs, we do training. Again, we train people, we develop curriculum, but we are what we consider to be the City of Montgomery small business guru. Anybody that's interested in opening a small business, they typically come through the lab on Dexter, and I serve in the role of executive director for the lab on Dexter. But that is under the auspice of Gateway Solutions. And most recently, we secured an RFP that will allow our company to operate all small business for the city of Montgomery. So it's that journey of I was in education, but I'm still an educator. It's just not in the traditional format. And I educate people primarily on how to start a business, how to run a business, among many other things. I was also a DEI expert. I still consider myself a DEI expert. Unfortunately, our state is going through a ton of changes as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's very unfortunate because I spent a significant time in Africa, but also in Europe, and most recently was in Panama. And was thinking, had I not had the education that I have and the mindset of understanding differences, understanding how people, diversity of thought, culture, sensitivity, I would have been very awkward in being in Central America working to do business there. So I'm very thankful for my diversity education background and still lend that time and talent to companies that still see that as an important value for their companies to thrive, because it's critical, I believe, in understanding your profits and margins because people are different. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with culture. It's a lot of times it has to do with diversity of thought, diversity of experiences. I do not have a military background, but my diversity of thought allows me to understand that someone in the military or that has a military background brings a diverse body of experiences to the table. So, worked in diversity and education while diversity and inclusion while I was in education. So I think I've told you about Adashik. I've told you about Gateway. I also am the co-founder and serve as the CEO of 400 Filmworks, which is a boutique storytelling film company. And that company was birthed out of a desire to tell stories. My cousin and I, who are business partners, and she's now a partner in the handbag company, we are really storytellers. And we thought we were starting that company so that we could write a 4-part documentary about our 7-year journey in Africa. Well, our first film was released about a month ago, and it had nothing to do with Africa. And I'm super excited about that. So we know that for both of us, another pivot is coming as we work to tell stories, consult, help people start businesses, and so forth. So that's just a little bit about my journey. And I definitely want to give you all time to ask me some things, or ask questions about it. I was in Huntsville yesterday speaking to their area business owners and or their women business owners. And my greatest takeaway as I drove that long drive back was that as we celebrate Women's History Month, as we think about women and all of the power that we possess, for me, it has been that there has been a woman at every pivotal point of my journey. I consider them my guardian angels, whether it was a woman saying, you can get the PhD, or a woman saying, this is how I opened my boutique, or a woman saying, this is how I wrote my first film. And so reason I said I'm always available for these type conversations, because I know I always pay it forward when it relates to women, because had it not been for the women that saw something in me or that saw a talent or lended their time, I would not be sitting here. And then I did want to share most recently my real estate journey. I owned a significant amount of property, but purchased a old Victorian home. Did not know what in the world I was getting myself into, but felt nudged to do it. And after 18 months of renovating and re-renovating and getting it to a place that we could open it. We have opened the Gateway building, and we are in the historic downtown district of South Perry. This home was built by a former slave who had been freed by his enslaver, and they ended up going into business together. Part of his freedom included building 4 homes for the person that enslaved him. And he went on to build a significant amount of buildings within the city of Montgomery. Well, I'm telling
Hey,
you this because,
on
of
a
course,
call. Who is it?
that's our second film that we're working on to tell this story. Again, storytelling weaves back in because while there is a great deal of information about the person that owned him, there's not a lot of information about who he was. And he died Montgomery's first Black millionaire who had been freed from slavery. So I'm excited to work on his autobiography as we are working now to write it and to turn it into a documentary. I don't think anything is by coincidence. And again, it was a woman who sold me the building. So all of this intersectionality of women and the pivotal points in my life have brought me to this conversation.
Dr. Thompson, that's awesome. I was sitting here, of course, taking notes and taking it all in. And when you spoke about your business partner and your cousin and how you want to make for sure that you do pay it forward to the next female, this goes to this question that I have to ask. And I know you have plenty of success stories that you can share with us about this. Can you share a moment where you felt particularly proud of supporting another woman's success?
Oh my God. I have tons of those. I'll give one because Janelle is on this call.
Mhm.
Um, so I know that Janelle is an author, and part of my brain is just wired like, how can I do something for somebody else? Or I'm always thinking about opportunities where I can pull women in. And I remember calling her and saying, hey, do you have any books? And she was like, yeah. And I said, I can't remember. I was like, maybe let me, buy whatever number of books. But what she didn't know is that we were on our way to provide children's books from female authors to a library that we were supporting in Nigeria. And it was for women and girls to see women around the world authors. And so, again, knowing that she was an author and wanting her book to be exposed on the continent, and for women to, if young girls may not ever meet her, but I wanted them to know her name and to know that she existed. And so, I've already told the story now, but that was just one of many moments. I consistently do that. If I'm having an event in Montgomery, I'm probably hiring a woman caterer. And I have a Rolodex in my head of who the women DJs are, who the women um, caterers are. Is there a woman that does something? They will say that I'm always going to plug you.
And that leads to the next question that I was going to ask, but you answered it. How do you, promote the diverse leadership? And you just shared, that you make for sure that, hey, I need that woman caterer, I need that female
All the time.
DJ, I need this. You had your realtor. You stated that
Yes.
told you the home, so and that is a great strategy if we don't look at it, a strategy of making for sure that we're promoting that female diversity that's
Right.
out there. Um, how can we create more inclusion for women? Sometimes it can be lonely at the top. I know you
Mhm.
stated that you have had support along the way, especially with your doctorate, giving you that direction as well as you giving direction to others that wanted to be business owners. How can we get more females at the top? How can we diversify that level of entrepreneurship, inclusion, the whole nine?
Right. Well, I feel that the solution, honestly, is that we empower each other and that we keep it top of mind. And when I say keep it top of mind, if you're at the table and they're making decisions, is there a woman that you can promote or that you can bring to the conversation? a lot of times people don't, or they're afraid to put an equally powerful person in position with them, which I do struggle with that concept because I don't know that personally. That has not been my experience. I am a little green when it comes to the whole jealousy thing or not wanting people to win because you're winning. I struggle with that because that's not my journey. Every woman that has given to me freely. So when people ask me, like, what do you do about haters or what do you do about a woman that's in competition? I do nothing because I don't compete. I collaborate. I'm always a collaborator. And so I do look at people and their work ethic, but a woman that I know has a talent, if she's a leader or she's working to develop her leadership skills, let's bring her to the table and let's give her an opportunity to grow. So I really think it's keeping it top of mind and keeping it a part of your professional development plan. You know, at the top of the year, we always start with what will I do this year? What do I want to accomplish? What conferences what do I want to go to? Well, equally, I always put in there, who do I want to support this year? Who do I want to be intentional about having lunch with or having cocktails or coffee with? You have to set these times and you have to be extremely deliberate, intentional because we are all busy. And busy is an excuse. We make time for what we want to make time for, but I try to make sure that I schedule those times with the people that I know they're either watching my journey or I'm watching their journey. And mentorship a lot of times happens from afar. It's not necessarily a coffee. It could be I'm watching how you're moving and I'm learning something from your journey.
And this question here is it's the question that I asked to our last speaker, and she
Mhm.
gave us her insight on it. And coming from female background, finding our place, and working to that level of advancement that we all seek. What are your thoughts on imposter syndrome?
I think it's real. I think imposter syndrome is a real syndrome. There have been times that I have walked into things because of my faith and how I will leap. I am a risk taker at nature that I have felt it. I have, and I'll tell you this one particular example. So, someone had nominated me for a school board where my child was in school, and I did not get the vote the very first time. And I remember feeling crushed, like, how dare they not vote me? But that wasn't my time. That was to introduce me to this concept of you can help lead this school. Later, like a year or two, someone else brought my name back and said, no, we need her on this board. And I think my ego got in the way, like, yeah, you better vote me. You know, like I bring all of this, whatever. But when I got to that room, there were things that did kind of grip my stomach.
Mhm.
And I remember leaving there several times thinking, oh my God, they're talking about balancing budgets that are like in the millions. And then, like, I have to read the balance sheet and I have to do all of these things to be ready. And I very early on remember feeling like, do I deserve to be at this table? And all the times that I would say that to myself, I also remember saying, yes, you do. You are just as qualified, but do the work before you get there. Learn about the profit and loss sheet. Call somebody, find somebody that you can sit and have coffee with, that they can explain the various things that they discuss so freely that I'm such a freshman at it that I didn't understand it. And I did. I found a stakeholder who became a quote unquote like coach, like, well, this is how we do this. This is how this is budget is ran. And this, those things that intimidated me, this person helped me to unpack them. So to answer your question, imposter syndrome is real, but I'm never backing down from anything. I'm just going to sit with it in my stomach, be nervous, and then find out who is the information, who is the gatekeeper that can help me. And that's how I've overcome that syndrome.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't want to make it between the two of us having the conversation. If you do have questions, you're more than welcome to type in the chat box or you can unmute and ask your question. But I do have other questions, but I'll kind of hold them for some others to come out.
May I
Okay.
jump in?
You sure can.
Go ahead, Janelle. Uh, so I would like to know what advice do you have for women who are navigating a male-dominated environment or industry?
Ugh, that was a question from yesterday. Um, so I have two ways of thinking about that, Larissa. Number one is there a tax on women to be greater? Yes, I do feel like there is this un it's not a fair burden that we have to show up and we have to be on and we have to probably do it more than men because of the tone that they set. But if it's something that you're going after, I believe that you should always show up prepared. I'm never going to enter that room where they can kind of poke a hole like, see, she really doesn't deserve to be here. Is
Hmm.
that unfair? Yes, because a lot of times they show up mediocre and they are still excelling, but the reality is it is what it is. So I have to show up prepared. I have to show up ready for the assignments to do what I need to do. But my second way of thinking of it is I'm not sure that I'm okay with leaning fully into the notion of dancing for them, if that makes sense.
It does. And so can I kind
Mhm,
of piggyback in there? Um, Assertiveness. I know that
mhm.
sometimes, occasionally, women who show assertiveness, especially I think in a male-dominated field, face a little bit of pushback for being, well, she's, it's the opposite of them saying, "Oh, you should smile more." Well, no, I don't need to smile
Yeah,
more. You need to pay attention to the work I'm doing. But at the same time, I think that delicate balance of being
yeah,
overly assertive yet assertive enough to be in the room and be noticed. So, do you have any little, I don't know, tips or tricks or things that you
yeah,
might do when you walk into that situation?
yeah. I think it's really read the room. It's read the room, but read it and then adjust to your comfort level. If it's causing you anguish, if it's causing you what I consider to be mental fatigue, like I'm not working so hard to prove myself to you, like I can't do that. That's not the right room for me. But I will be true to myself. Now I'm going to be prepared for the room. But
Hmm.
again, going back to like, I'm not dancing for you. If I'm not feeling like smiling, I'm not doing it. But you will respect me. And if you're not, this is not the right room. So we have to be careful to know, is it the room that I need to be in? Because there are some men that have also been advocates in my journey as well. Women have led the charge mainly, but in that men's space, you have to, for me, you have to be very careful that you don't even let your own ego, right? Like
Hmm.
I gotta prove to them. Be careful and check yourself too that I'm not just trying to prove to them that I need to be here. So it's that checks and balance system and putting your own ego in check. How does this room feel? And then it's the consistency because they break, they really do need us in that space. But I don't think every room is the perfect room. So sometimes it may
Okay.
not be the right alignment as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your insight.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. You spoke about your most recent business success or adventure, if you will, with your Gateway Center location, your home. What are your plans or expectations with that location?
Yeah, so it is a y'all. Okay, let me just be real. This place has is 3 floors. So we knew the first floor was a condo, right? We knew that it was a condo, so we put some tenants in. It's an attorney and a CPA up there. They work downtown. It's perfect. The second floor is where we primarily occupy. So we have 6 offices. My office is here for the consulting firm. We have a drop dead conference room, and I'll put that shameless plug if you ever need a space downtown. But we have 2 small businesses already located, and then we have 3 that are vacant. So this is a place for small businesses. This entire place was curated around who the builder was. And Jim Hale was a freedman who became a builder. Okay, so he became a builder in the city, a famous builder, and he was an entrepreneur. So this is a space for small business owners. Now, our ground floor is a speakeasy that we're building out now, and Montgomery does not have a traditional speakeasy. So that's why I pause. Like this whole concept of a speakeasy downtown Montgomery, I really in progress, but we'll be open May 15th. So we're working and we're learning and we're researching as we go, but we have a concept in mind.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
Yes, I actually have a few. First, I want to say thank you for the shameless plug. I'm excited about the speakeasy, considering it's 2 days before my birthday, so I will be there.
Yes.
And okay, so let me see. With all the many hats that you wear or that you have worn, how do you balance staying on top of things without neglecting another?
So I thought you were going to ask about the work-life balance, but you didn't. So let me stick with the question. So I am extremely organized, but it's a chaotic organization. I have an amazing assistant who we have become so lock in step with each other. I can do brain dumps with her, and she holds me accountable for the many things. So currently on our plate, we have the Gateway Building, which is a separate entity. We have Gateway Solutions, which is the consulting firm. We have Ada Chic, which is the handbag company. We have 400 Films, which is our film company. And we're in film season right now. So we're scheduling and waiting on approvals to show up at film festivals. We also have our nonprofit, which is She Wins Global, that supports women around the globe in literacy and healthcare matter. So those are the top five. Without an assistant, I always believe you hire your weakness. I don't care what I have to sacrifice. I have to have a person that I am a creator and a creative brain. So she is my person that holds me accountable and will keep me task driven. So do it with a team and my various business partners as well.
Good deal. Thank you. And then my last question, you talked about sort of checking yourself at times and so forth. So what does that self-reflection look like for you? How do you hold yourself accountable?
I personally am very goal driven. And once I feel it and I set it, I'm very competitive. And so my process of goals is it's going to sound probably something you have never heard before. So let me explain how I do it. And but this just is innate to me, but I'm very athletic and physically driven. And so I typically know when I'm birthing a project, the way my mind and body is set up, it typically works with a physical activity as well. So, for instance, a couple years ago, I was training for a half marathon, but I was also launching a project. So, all of that training for me was the mental connected to my physical that kept me on task, if that makes sense. We have My cousin and I have a goal that we're scheduled to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in October. But I know us climbing that mountain is also the mountain of producing this next film, if that makes sense. Some people paint, some people do gardening. We are very physically attached to our goals. So whenever I have a goal, I know that I'm birthing the goal and I'm holding myself accountable to taking the steps to birthing this building. And that's what happened. I think recently somebody said, "Oh, you lost like 12 pounds." Well, that's because I've been birthing something. And I was so physically um, walking and running to mentally make me sharper for what I had to do on a day to day basis. So for me, it's always mental, physical, and kind of in the natural coming out.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
I know that's a weird kind of analogy, but that's how my life is set up. It always comes out in something physical. That's how I get the aggression and get the adrenaline flowing through a physical activity.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's good. That's
Mhm.
good.
You get your
I'm not sure I
endorphins
would try
working.
that. My treadmill probably I'll have to blow the dust off of it.
My sister was like, "Oh no, that's not for me. My strategy is baking. I bake, you know." I said, "Whatever works, you know." But
So with
I
everything that you shared as your suggestions and everything, I will ask that question. How do you create that work-life balance? Because you have presented a number of things that you have done, you are doing, have planned in the future, and put on the plate, the climb the mountain and everything. How do you create that balance in your life?
so again, everyone is different, but for me, I enjoy life on a daily. Today is pretty. I'm up at my building. I need to go down to the chamber. I'm walking. I am outside. I'm letting that vitamin D hit me. I walk up and down downtown all the time. Like I need to be out and thinking, but balance for me, a lot of it's travel. So I was in Panama and I had not been to that area before. And I was there to talk to them about bringing my company there to help them build their school systems out in a new way. And they were like, "Here's your schedule." I'm like, "No." So first of all, I'm going to need a day to myself so that I can explore. I need a day to go see the Panama Canal because I read about it in the eighth grade and I got to see it. So I am very conscious about having a good time. And people will say, people that see me on social media, like, "Do you work?" I'm like, it may look like I'm having fun, but every trip is probably a business trip or something. But we build in. My cousin is very good with that. She's like, "Hey, we're gonna be in California for these meetings, and like, do you want to hike a desert?" Yes. So we build it in all the time. There's no trip that there's not something for our well-being because it's too much. It's a lot and it's heavy. And I know when it's time to step away. I will say this out of transparency. I think as a parent, I struggled because I was or I am a workaholic. And I remember being at our lab on Dexter, and we have this coffee series. And I was sharing, they were asking the same thing. And we were talking about women, ambitious women, and the things that we do. And they were asking me about the time that I was an educator. If you know anything about higher ed, if you're vice president of students, you don't own your life. The school does because kids do crazy stuff. And there's always drinking, there's always a party, there's always sexual assault things. There's so much. And then I took my job so serious and I was responsible for 5,000 students. And so as the dean of students and in that role, I was always getting calls at night. And I remember when I left, because remember I left to consult, but I also, what I didn't say was I left for quality of life. But my daughter said, my youngest kid, we were driving by the school and she looked over and she said, "I'm so glad you don't work there anymore." I know, like I tear up thinking about it. And she said, "I felt like a lot of my childhood was given away because of the way that you worked." And so I reframed that conversation to her in the sense of, I may not be your traditional mother as some of your friends' moms, but I think you'll tell a different story when you're older that my mom was ambitious. She was a global leader. She set up villages and she took read to kids in Africa and she showed me a way that's not necessarily traditional, but she still gave me different values. And so we talked through that and I'm very transparent with them about making sure that I fulfill the purpose that's in my life. And my purpose is big. And and I also apologize for when I was not there because, when you're a mother and, you know, it's tough trying to be all places and all things. And she's like, "Oh, by the way, and you didn't cook well." And I was like, "Well, what did I do good? I don't know. I don't cook. I don't know what to tell you." But we laugh about it now. And now that she's 19 and she's in college, she says, "Man, you have shown me so much, like the things that I've experienced." So no, I didn't pack good lunches. And I know those things, but she does tell me the things that I did get right. So that's just my truth. And leave it or leaving that traditional environment that makes you work all the time. It's tough. So I am always telling people, find moments you can take your kids, that you can take your daughters, or if you have sons, that you can add them into the things that you're doing, because it's a lot when you have a big dream in your heart or you work a lot. It's a lot.
Thank you for that transparency. That was good.
Yeah, she's like, no, you worked every night till 10 o'clock. I was like, but I brought you on campus. Like, weren't you there? So
They say kids will tell you the absolute truth,
oh
okay?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
One's
yeah.
just gonna be like, hey, here, this is what it is. Deal with it. If it's good or bad, but I'm just gonna give you.
Exactly. Exactly.
With that being said, what's next for you? I'm pretty sure
Okay.
you have a list of plans and a list of, goals to accomplish. What's next for Dr. Thompson?
Oh my God. It's a lot. It's some things that I've seen that scare me,
Mhm.
but I know that they're next for me. Real estate, affordable housing, building communities throughout the city, helping to help our mayor and city leaders develop communities that really attract younger folks back to Montgomery. Um, I work with the chamber on talent recruitment so that we don't lose all of our students to Atlanta and Birmingham. And then, of course, I see a need like, well, if we want them to stay here, then we have to have affordable housing. We have to have a downtown that's vibrant, i.e. the speakeasy, loft apartment. So real estate is a big piece of my portfolio that's taken up a lot of my time, that I think my spirit guides got me on this property so that I can understand building. I can understand codes. I understand the things because I went through almost a 2-year journey of building a property from the ground up, because we tore it down to rebuild it. So that prepared me for what it looks like when we build these duplexes or these quads with the rooftops and Hill in these areas that we're looking at. So real estate is a big part of my portfolio moving forward. Also just working again with city leaders to make sure that we have a vibrant city, that people with families, people that are single, everybody can say, I want to be in Montgomery. I want to stay here, and helping our community understand not everything is in Atlanta and Birmingham.
Right.
That is so true. Um, so are there any other questions or comments that you may have for Dr. Thompson? I don't want to take up any more time from Dr. Thompson. You know how they say, I want to give back your time, okay? So if there are no questions or comments, Janelle, do you have anything you would like to share?
Nothing more than a sincere thank you on behalf of Sharon Montgomery. We appreciate you making time and being very intentional with that, because we see that you have a lot of things going on. So
And we didn't
we
even talk
appreciate
about being a community leader in organizations, but that's important, that's
Right.
important for me to give back to my community. So I wholeheartedly enjoy leading worlds as well.
So say if someone wanted to connect with you or if they wanted to follow you or whatever the case may be, how can they access you or contact you?
Sure. So yeah, my email, which is Nichole, Nichole, at Gateway Solutions, and that's GAITY, and then the word solutions.com. I'm on Facebook minimally. Instagram, I keep private because I feel like I should just have something to myself that I just share with people. And I have toyed back and forth about a gateway presence in social media, and my team has said it's absolutely necessary. So if you all make a note, we launched that April 15th on purpose, because we will give tips. We'll invite you to conversations on DEI, on growing a company. If you're thinking about starting a business, what should you do? We'll also offer consulting times, but we launched that page on the 15th. I would highly recommend that you follow it, because we're doing it with a strategy, and it's not just your static post that you post. We're being very intentional about engaging people that want to tip their toe into a business, or they are looking for leadership quotes and leadership things to help them grow as a leader. But we're being very intentional about that page. But we'll have all of that up on April 15th.
Okay. And will that include LinkedIn as well, or just other platforms?
Yep. LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay. Sounds good. So
Kicking
Crystal,
and screaming, but we're
Tiffany,
doing it.
Kayla, Larissa, Pamela, Vanessa, thank you guys so much for joining with our final Women's Talk series for the month of March, Women's Month. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. If there are no questions or any other comments, I'm going to end the talk and give your time back.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all for sharing your lunch with me.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Have a good day.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.